aside from my smoking habits, and I think I'm wearing black underpants, I think we've gone through the personal. And an artist every day takes the chance of going mad because you find yourself in situations that are past the point of logic you understand. You have to readapt your own logic just to be able to communicate with somebody else. And I think communication is the major point of art. The point of the operation is each individual person that chooses to make art has something they're trying to communicate. When they successfully communicate that, whether it's accepted or not, they have succeeded. Art is not about telling, it's about showing. If you can place a piece of stone and a piece of wood, and you can put them in relation to the flow of life, there is quite a bit there for people to use to be able to find their own relation to the world and their own place in the sun. So it's posing a question. You pose the question of almost what if. When you were a child, didn't you ever sit there and think, what if Madonna and Einstein had a baby? What would the baby be like? Well, every piece of art is posing those questions. If you take these materials and put them together, what would the product, what would the result look like? When you see a sculpture, when you see a Brancusi, when you see a Carl Andre, what do? You tell yourself what you're seeing. After a while, I began to realize that I was working all over the world building things, which is a real privilege. But one of the responsibilities is that what you're doing does not become exotic. All the work that I do has to do with materials that are available to anybody. The trouble is that in Denmark, they make wood look one way, in Japan another, in the north of the United States another, and in the south another. But wood in the end is wood. And I began to realize that if I could determine sculpture by the use of language, it would allow itself to move from culture to culture. And the work has no metaphor. And in having no metaphor, it leaves it open for people to use the work to make a metaphor to suit their needs and their desires. It seemed to me an amenable way of placing my work in the world. Well, I give people the option that I'll build a piece for them, meaning the meaning of the words. The piece doesn't have to be built. It can be presented in language, or it can be built by somebody else because the words are all well-meaning. They choose to leave it in language because, again, it allows that mixture from one generation to another, where the meanings of things very often change, but the things themselves don't. So in the end, they have an inherent form and an inherent meaning. Language allows for that inherency to remain. Since the 60s, there is not one place left in the world that doesn't have some kind of an art center. A place where each individual culture, it doesn't matter what it looks like, it doesn't matter what it's doing, has a place to pose questions. Now that is something. Art is one of those things that has no essential definition. It has a history. And it has no qualifications necessary. It has no need for a reference point to anything else. Art is one of those things that appears in the world because somebody decides they're going to pose the question. And that makes it art. That's the whole purpose of art. It doesn't answer anybody's question. It gives them the means to answer their particular question at that moment. When I say I want to fuck up people's lives, I want them to change their behavior patterns. If you don't accept Hegel, and you don't accept Aristotle, and you understand simultaneous existences, there's no hierarchy. If there's no hierarchy, there's no way to have racism. None whatsoever. There's no logic to it. My expectations, I think, are the same as anybody else that votes, pays taxes, and reads the newspaper. I wish they would just stop being so cruel to each other for no reason. That's an expectation, but my art's not going to change that, but it's going to take away any rationalization for that. When you do the wrong thing, you're doing the wrong thing. There's no way to rationalize it. You are responsible. You knew what you were going to do. When you pointed the gun and you pulled the trigger, you knew it was going to kill somebody. It didn't happen by accident. Oh, what a surprise. The art is about simultaneous realities, and those realities are not a reflection of each other. Reflections of things have a tendency to become hierarchy. One is the real and the other is the copy. It's like Freudian dreams. They don't mean anything. A boy is a girl, a cat is a dog. It's all things you know. Art is about things you don't know. Not about things that somebody invented or created, but something that nobody noticed. And that's what my life is about. It's about finding those things and having the time to be able to present those things that people might not have noticed. I'm terribly sorry. The most important thing in the world and the most expensive thing in the world is time. The only way you can get time is to buy it. And in order to buy it, if you're rewarded for spending your time putting things out, you take that money and you buy time and you make more things. It's win-win, okay? You wake up every morning and your job as an artist is to try to pay attention to where you are at the moment, not where you used to be or who you used to be or what you used to be. I have seen things succeed. I have seen things change things, yes. I even make children's books every once in a while about questions of value and give and take, have and take, give and get, about questions of where in the world could this be beautiful. Those are the things that I really and truly find are the sort of social things that one does. The book for France, where in fact it's an existential question. Does each rock have a place in the sun? Or do you have to move these big rocks to find the place? Or do you just say the hell with it and just spread pebbles every place the way our society tells us to do it? Children can understand that as a dilemma. They don't have a lot of way to get out of it. Our structure is so, art world is the only place where you can maybe break that structure. And all of this market stuff and this new thing going around with the market, I don't really think it has anything to do with anything, and I don't think it's harmful, and I don't think it's good. I think makes some people happy, it's fine, but it has nothing to do with the function of art. Nothing whatsoever. An enormous respect for graphic design. I use graphic design sometimes when I'm making books or installations, but don't forget, graphic design is visceral. It puts you in a state immediately without building a mise en scène around it, that you immediately react to. Art is sensual, and sensual is a different take on materials. So graphic design is graphic design. As I said, I have an interest and appreciation for it. And when I don't like the way something looks, I reinvent it. I didn't like the way a certain typeface looked, so I invented a new typeface. That's what people do. You don't like the way the egg tastes, you invent another way to cook it. You're not really changing the egg, and you're not really developing the egg, but you're using it in a different way. And I see graphic design that way. I convince myself every day that I know enough not to run somebody over. I convince myself that I'm not going to put something in the society that's going to do the wrong thing, but I'm not. If I was sure, I wouldn't have to draw, I wouldn't have to think, and I wouldn't have to work. I would just pronounce. I still have the miscomprehension or misunderstanding that I have something to say. So I convince myself and fool myself every morning that what I'm going to be doing is going to have something to say to somebody. And the problem of being an older artist is that you've been around as people were developing for a long time, and you've been working in public, and the work changes and grows. But in the end, it's like ice hockey. It doesn't matter if it's your first time on the ice in a game, or if you've been only back because you had to pay for your kids' college, you had to do something, and you got every bone in your body broken. In the end, it's all about that. It's all about getting that thing in that hole.